the low of the day. But it's interesting how, yes, I did do that, but at the same time, I was able to instantly start making money. And, getting the confidence to do that, I've been able to do that using essentially the Vantage Point software. Sorry, we're just going to bring this up again so everybody can see this. Now, again, this trade is still a concern to me at a number of levels. The market has broken through these major levels of what previously was very strong support for the last week. That support is given way. When that gives way, our support then turns resistance. That's the way we want to look at this. So for now, unless we get a sustained break of this 72.32, New Zealand US is likely to head lower. So I've taken that opportunity to kind of jump on this move and get in on some trades. So looking at this, now here's the problem when we go into this, doing a trade like this. Looking at the short-term crossover, I'm going to hit apply. We can see that we have a short-term crossover, very, very slight crossover to the downside. But again, the medium-term crossover and the long-term crossover are not completely supporting this trade. So when you're looking at two trades in commodity-based currencies, the two that have a high correlation to each other are New Zealand US and Australia US. Again, these two pairs are, they're based around buying and selling US dollars. Well, the US dollar index is going through the roof, so it's unlikely that New Zealand or Australia is going to be able to make up any ground whatsoever against the US dollar. Now, again, looking at the long-term crossover here, we can see that this long-term crossover is also, it has not taken place. We've not crossed over to the upside, so trading off this short-term indicator can be, in a lot of cases, is not the greatest idea, because in essence, our triple EMA crossover is saying that the market is still in somewhat of a buy formation, but in the short term, it's going to move lower. So over the next few days, hopefully Vantage Point will continue to produce the sell signal on New Zealand US, and this will move lower. But the risk of a whipsaw higher in a case like this is strong. So we have to take that into consideration. We can see that the market's hovering around this 71.52. I've entered short at 71.63 to illustrate, to see if we can get this thing moving. Now, again, that is one of our first positions that we've entered into. Now, another position, what we're going to take, why we're actually trading live here, we're going to get into the US-Japan currency pair. Now, the US-Japan, this is going to be volatile. The equity markets are getting absolutely hammered today. They got killed yesterday too, all based around Greece. But these are not corrective moves. They're they're reacting to the fundamentals that are happening on a global basis. So what we're going to do here, normally when the equities get hit hard like this, the US-Japan currency pair sells off, the yen strengthens, and the rest of the pack essentially loses ground against the US dollar. But historically, the yen actually is the one currency that gains strength. But regardless of that, for training purposes here today, we're going to go ahead and enter into this US-Japan currency trade live. So we can see we've got a $50,000 trade. We've entered into our position, entered into a buy at 94.76, currently trading at 94.73. We want to observe the low today. The low today has been 94.48. So let's go in, have a look at the software and say, okay, we're at the high of the day. Why is this guy buying US-Japan at the high of the day? Well, that is the million-dollar question. So let's have a look at this. We've got our 3-day predicted moving average from Vantage Point sitting at 94.35. We're 35 pips away from that. The market's come down to 94.48 and bounced off this area. In this particular trade, I've entered into a buy. Looking at the 18-day predicted moving average from Vantage Point, my stop would then be below this level. So essentially, unless it can clear this 93.59, the US dollar strength is likely to prevail here, and US-Japan probably going to break higher. Now remember, a lot of trading is based on probability, trying to find where the buyers and the sellers are meeting. 94.50, 94.68 has been a very big area for US-Japan. Yesterday we cleared it. So in the theory, with a lot of times with Forex, what you'll see on a day-to-day basis is that tomorrow will be exactly the same as today, with a slight extension of the same range. So if we take that theory into consideration here, yesterday we hit a high of 94.99. So if we think that today is going to be the same as tomorrow, then today we should probably hit maybe 95.20. So let's go in and have a look at what VantagePoint is saying for the predicted high and the predicted low for today. 94.01, 94.89. Our neural index is still up. We've got 22, 38, and 61 on the predicted short, medium, and long-term differences. So essentially what that means is our short, medium, and long-term crossovers are all positive. They're all still pointing up. That's a good sign. We can go in and have a quick look at that just to confirm that. We've got our short-term crossover. Again, we're going to back here, look at our medium-term crossover. That's taken place actually last week when actually I was recommending to buy positions on US Japan's. In my live account, I have a number of long positions on US Japan, trailing all the way down to about 91.50 based on around the VantagePoint software, but I'm still adding positions on a day trading basis. So again, looking at that long-term crossover, we can see that that took place also back on April the 25th. So everything again looks good there for US Japan to move higher, but we have to remember that the possibility that the yen could be the only currency that gains strength against the US dollar. But we're not gonna let that bother us for the sake of training purposes here today. We want to make sure that we identify trades and why we're getting into them. So we can see that the crossover on US Japan took place right around that 90 level. What I've mentioned is that I started buying as it started moving up. We then got a retracement back. Triple EMA tried to make a crossover right here at this 93 level. Complete failure, and then we've extended up towards this 95 level. So the question is going to be is, can we clear this 95 level? Excuse me. Well, hopefully we will clear that, and hopefully we'll clear it during this presentation, but that'll be left to be seen. Now, let's go in and have a look at the US-Canadian pair. The US-Canadian pair here, we can see it's currently trading at 103.15. I've talked the fact that I've entered in 2 buy positions yesterday specifically for this webinar. Now, the reason I've done that, and the reason why I've bought this currency at such a high level, most people would look at this and say, why in the world is this guy buying US-Canada at 101.97 and 101.94? Well, the answer to that question here is that we have this crossover taking place. The triple EMA is the first thing I'm going to look at. Are we getting into a trend reversal here? In my opinion, yes, we are, and yes, we were when I said it on Sunday and when I said it again on Monday. So looking at this, I'm going to pull this up so everybody can see this. We've got our short-term crossover from VantagePoint. We've got this crossover that's taken place. It's bouncing off the simple moving average, but the trigger has hit and it's extended higher. Going into the medium-term crossover, let's have a look at this. This is everything that's been happening here. That's extended higher. Now, looking at the long-term crossover, everything there is pointing higher. This is not a short-term, this is not, I should say, a long-term, a medium, or a short-term setup, guys. This is an overall setup, and a way the analysis should be done on a day-to-day basis. We don't want to look at just the short-term crossover, and we don't want to look at just the long-term crossover. We want to look at everything. So before we enter in, before we enter into a short-term position, we want to make very sure of what the long-term outlook and even the medium-term outlook looks like. Because if you're solely trading off a short-term crossover with the neural index and a couple of other things, that potentially could be a big problem. Now, I'm going to illustrate that here. Again, well, I'm just going to finish this off before I do that. We can see that the MACD has crossed over to the upside. We've got our predicted TSI from VantagePoint has crossed over again to the upside. Our predicted RSI, we're not in overbought territory. US Canada with this triple EMA in its formation, our long-term cross